the dynamic that is this little corner, quote unquote, quote unquote, unquote, and
Mm-hmm.
I get so caught up that I'm not. Last time, like, our plan was to kind of do a little introduction for you, but afterwards I was feeling like, like this is your first real conversation. I probably should have like, paid, like been more, of a welcoming and questioning, uh,
Well, I
participant.
mean,
So,
I have the advantage of being the observer,
mm,
unlike you, right? It's like I already had this sort of advantage that
yeah,
in a
yeah,
sense, I know you. I don't
yeah,
know you. I still don't know you, but
hmm,
um, because of the way this whole thing works, you put a part of yourself out there so that other people can know you in a
yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. Yeah,
It is
I've been
interesting.
thinking about this a bit because it's part of something kind of like what you said, something about this, the idea of like this little corner, something about it doesn't sit perfect in my mind, and I think, um, we do have to kind of, I think it's like, perhaps it's the label that we're using to describe the phenomenon, all right? It's like,
Mhm.
we need to categorize something. Perhaps we don't need to categorize it, but it's like, I don't know, there's something about, um, maybe it's just my particular disposition because I, uh, have this particular idea that I'm raving about. Um, but it's like I haven't wanted to. I don't know. I don't want it to be like about me and stuff, and like look at my idiosyncrasies and like figure out. I think there's it's like I think there's different aims within. I think that this little corner and like the idea of one particular spirit. It's like there's many spirits. Like there's people in this corner doing like, literally cutting edge like intellectual, uh conversations and stuff like that, right?
Hmm.
So
Right,
this is
right.
so it's not just about like getting to know each other, you know?
No, no.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so and this is not like, yeah, and this is not to say that like I shouldn't have been more engaged in, like questioning you, about, or like getting to know you rather, but that's just kind of one thing that comes up for me in this whole conversation about this little corner and like, learning about each other and stuff. It's like perhaps I think I'm very happy to see like the conversation, like people noticing these social dynamics. That's what I think
Hmm.
is important to me. It's like we realize that something is happening. There's a spirit in the air, and it's like we
I
like it,
agree. I
and it's
agree.
good. And yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It's I don't know. The invitation's out there, right?
hmm,
I've been following your channel. I've been following Chad's channel. I've
hmm,
been following Grim's channel. I've been listening to Gavin. I've been listening to Luke and Grail Country and
hmm,
many of these other channels, right? And of course Paul for as long as more than a time than I can remember. And I don't know, it's just something. There was this call:
hmm,
participate, participate,
yeah,
participate,
yeah,
break
yeah.
the fourth wall,
Hmm.
break the fourth wall. And
Yeah, that's hard for me. That's hard for me. It's very hard, especially when you're starting out. It's like for the people who've, I really do appreciate what Luke said about like, you're still new to this and stuff, because it is true. I think when you're starting out, like that's particularly difficult aspect of it because you're so used to looking at these screens, and you're probably making like just the resting watching face. It's like it's totally different when when the screen actually reacts. So I think that that's
yeah,
a
yeah,
yeah, it's a big
that is
it's a
true.
big thing. One thing I think is important about stressing is that,
Yeah.
this these when we invite people into this space and stuff like that, we don't want to be like sucking them into a digital labyrinth, right? We want to
Hmm.
be, like I think that it needs to point towards, embodied, meetups and stuff like that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Going to Chad's house for, meals like they just did, like that's so dope in my opinion, you know and
Yeah.
even and also I think like the importance of what Paul's doing in terms of estuary, and like getting these local groups, and I think that's important as well because there is something I think valuable about the fact that this helps people to get out of the, kind of the maze of it's like scrolling on TikTok and like going and having like
Yeah, yeah.
working at your job and having no like like meaningful interactions, and stuff like this. Or and there shouldn't be a moving into this like we don't want to. I think you get what I'm saying. Like we're not trying to get sucked into just sitting behind our computer all day. You know, yeah, we want
No,
to
yeah,
like
I
yeah.
definitely think to me there's many layers to it, right?
Hmm.
And I think different people are going to come to it for very different reasons.
Hmm.
Um,
We have to remember in body or something. It's like we have to remember that like like theoretically, like the fourth wall. It's like breaking the fourth wall. I think that that's kind of an interesting thing when we, when people talk about their actual like living situations. It kind of reminds it reminds people that like, oh yes, here we are. We live in a shared space. But like,
right.
yeah, that can easily fall away when we're looking at these screens. It's like to remember that like I might shake your hand one day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Have you thought about what are your thoughts in terms of like how are you gonna uh how are you gonna not get sucked into the digital space? How are you gonna like do you have kind of thoughts in that regard?
Well,
I've kind of felt a
so
little bit
so
like that recently, where it's kind of I'm a little bit too invested in some of this stuff. Um, but I'm not really worried about it with myself. But I think that like I'm more so just curious, like, how is your like IRL quote unquote situation, and like, do you, I don't know, do you have like, you said it's pretty rare that you get a conversation like this, so I can imagine that's kind of been an annoyance or perhaps or something like that, where, because I felt similarly, it's like a lot of people don't really, haven't
yeah,
haven't kind of followed the steps of reasoning, where it's like, we have to prioritize these types of conversations.
well, there's just some there are interesting topics in this space that I
Yeah.
don't necessarily know a lot of people in my waking life that
Mm-hmm.
actually enjoy and or can keep up with the
Mm-hmm.
types of conversations that occur here. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the really cool things is, you know, being able to jump on a conversation with you and not have to play the catch up game, and then we can have some really high level conversation, kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you don't have to play the well, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What
Mm,
instead we can get on to
yeah.
I don't know that progression of
I
let's
guess
talk about
more,
this cool thing.
yeah, I guess more so I guess I would still like to hear more about like your day-to-day life and stuff, but also like have you given any thought towards like going to events or stuff like that, or like
Oh,
because
oh,
I guess that's kind of a big thing of what I'm saying here is that we have to like I think that a big thing that this a theme in this corner, I don't mean to, just whatever. The
yeah, name
I
it, name
think
it.
I think it should um be, really thinking about these IRL meetups, quote unquote IRL, like, you know, these
I don't know that acronym.
in real life. Obviously this
Okay.
is
I
real
see.
as well.
I don't really do text messaging at all. I personally like having in-person conversations,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, me too.
right?
Yeah.
And to me, this is even a lot better than having a phone conversation
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because you get to have that. Oh my gosh, are they even paying attention or are they just
It's the
off
non
doing
yeah,
whatever?
it's an
Yeah,
unspoken
it's what you're
context.
right,
Yeah, yeah.
right. Um, uh, do I don't know much about the events to be perfectly honest with you.
Hmm. Yeah, I've never gone to one.
I've seen little snippets of it. I've through my work, I've been through a number of events. Through
Hmm.
my church, I've been through a couple of events, and I found them to be extremely productive and useful.
Yeah,
They really change and alter your perception on things, and
yeah.
so I can imagine them being a good
Mhm.
and positive thing.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Um,
that kind of speaks to my this whole thing is like that you go to church, you go to a church. Like, what kind of church do you go to? I'm curious about that. Or
I go to
I don't know if
I
that's
go to
like,
an
is that a
no,
taboo in this in the Christian verse where we, like just tell me. Hopefully that's not. Hopefully that.
I go to a non-denominational church.
Gotcha.
So yeah, we got
Do
rock bands. It's
yeah.
great.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, you know,
Yeah.
Jesus is alive and well there,
Nice.
very much alive. I think we had, I don't know, 40, 50 baptisms over the
Wow.
last few months. So, I mean,
Wow,
we're
man.
growing
Yeah.
massively. Our building just had to expand. And
Cool.
I'm a small group leader. I
Oh,
do
nice.
children's ministry. I've done, I'm about to do a whole nother directions, uh, one-on-one sort of discipleship, which has been really helpful for me. Of
Hmm.
It's sort
What
of
is
like,
that?
what it's called directions. It's sort of a, um, it's a book or whatever. It's like a guided sort of, walk through these sort of, what am I thinking? Like devotional type things. But you get you get partnered up with somebody else and you go through it together.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But it's a lot more, it's personal,
I see.
and you talk about personal stuff.
Gotcha.
But
Cool.
yeah, I mean, and honestly, to be honest, now I'm thinking about this, that was one of the first things when I heard this estuary idea. I was like, ooh, I'm very interested in,
Yeah, like there might be people in
um,
your church, man, who are like, you know, big fans of like,
well,
and you just haven't come across each
yes,
other,
and
Okay.
well, it's, but it's something about, I want the church to be the church, and maybe this is something separate, and I may
Hmm.
be able to affiliate to the church, but not,
Hmm.
I don't particularly,
Hmm.
I don't suspect my church to be, the one to, I'll say, like, host
Hmm.
it or facilitate it,
Hmm.
right? Um, but I do, there's something about it. I don't know what it is, but being able to bridge that, um, you know, non-believers, believers in the same space, asking important questions and having good conversations like this, but not getting all caught up in the "I'm going to convert you" game. I think there's something really powerful about that.
Yeah,
Um,
man. Me too.
and I joke about this, but it's sort of the atheist fist fry thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
it's a joke, but it's not, right?
Yeah.
Um, if you've ever been to a fish
For real.
fry, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
everybody kind of needs that to some degree. And
for sure. Yeah,
I know
that's what
I
I was
don't.
thinking when you were talking about churches that sorry, I interrupted. It's like,
Yeah, go.
you know,
No.
the okay, then like, it's you like you're probably more even before like, hopping into the virtual conversation and stuff, it's like there's probably a lot of people who, you know, watching Paul Vanderklay's videos or something like, or John Vervaeke's, or plenty of people, probably Jordan Peterson, that's their only kind of meaningful conversation. And it's not even a conversation, it's like a one-way
Exactly.
type of thing. It's
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
their own.
Exactly.
So, you know, I think I'm glad to hear that, like, you mentioned earlier that you have trouble finding people who can kind of keep up with the intellectual conversations, and I think, as I said before, I think there's multiple aspects of what's going on here in this virtual space is that, um, like it's not only about the personal relationships, but it's also about the intellectual conversations and, advancing ideas like the discourse and stuff like that. And,
Mhm.
um, but it's good to hear that, like you're not seeking this to participate in this space because you feel without like relationship, like obviously you're married and stuff, but like, it's like
Right. Right.
without these this truly like distributed or something type of network of meaningful relationships and stuff like that, it's yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to bring it out into that
Yeah.
20-mile loop where I'm sitting at right here.
Hmm.
Um, because I,
Yeah.
I will Jesus smuggle all day long. I want people to find him. Okay,
Mhm,
that's if I have any goal, or sort of that's gonna be that.
mhm.
Um, but like I said, I want to do it in a very artful and kind way. I know how that feels. I've been on the other end of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
and then ultimately, at the end of the day, some people it's just like they don't want to hear it, and you know what? That's okay. That's perfectly fine. But
Mhm.
they still need the community anyways.
Yeah. That's very beautiful, man. Very interesting stuff. Like, when you mentioned uh the church being kind of separate, or like
Mhm.
that you kind of feel like that's perhaps how it should be. I think that's a really interesting thing, Like I think I I was watching that conversation that between the Meditations on Terror gang, um Sherry, Michael
Okay.
Martin,
Okay.
and
Nate.
Nate. Yes,
Yeah.
Lord knows I know his name, and I'm just forgetting in this instance. Um, um, yeah, and they were talking about, it's like, what do we mean by church and stuff? Because I think that's an interesting. I can definitely see both sides, right? It's like these things should be separate, but I also think that this is like part of Christ's working. Is this is the going out of the Holy Spirit into the whole world, and where what do we mean by the church? It's like
Mhm.
the eschatological church is not the same as like these institutional churches, for example, to put it very
Right.
simply. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like that's super interesting, to think about, because I think it's also tied up with this whole thing about this effective interfacing, the
Yeah.
New Jerusalem, right? Yeah, and the beauty that we might share in relationship with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I think about this a lot, not just the whole, interdenominational arguments, and
Hmm.
I don't think any of that is ever in the spirit of Jesus. Like
Hmm.
I don't think that's never going to bring anybody to Jesus. If anything, it's gonna get me a millstone around my neck. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Lately the thought that's been spinning through my mind is, I whatever. I've been around this corner enough to know you got very strong opinions. You got the Orthodox, it's the true church, and you got the
Hmm.
Catholic, the true church, and all these
I'm
sort
pretty
of things. And
opinionated about Galahad's work. I think that
yeah,
is important.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And I think that I can definitely learn something from you through that work. And eventually,
Mhm.
when I process it enough, I may even be able to return the favor to you.
Mhm. Well, I think
Right.
it'll.
But
What do you mean by that? I'm curious.
where's your next arrow pointing? Like
Mm.
what's in your focus right now? Is it more Galahad peering through the veil of all that?
I don't know. I feel like I still might make a. As I said, I've been wanting to make a video about this for a long time. So I'm thinking of making something that would kind of be similar to Galahad's work. Probably make reference to him as
Hmm.
well, like drawing on his work, stuff like that. So I don't know. I might do something like that, but also just
Can't
having
hurt.
these conversations. I think it's fun. Probably keep up the clipping. Like it's not. I don't know. I really, honestly, I feel like I took a. Um, I don't know. Um, it was a big deal for me to start like making the clips and stuff, because I used to be. You're talking about eras. Uh, I have Sagittarius rising in my birth chart. Like I've always been kind of a artistically inclined person, but I stopped for a long time, and
Yeah.
then to do this creative stuff, like it comes very. It doesn't feel like work to me. It's like at all,
Yeah. I
and
I am also a creative person.
well, we
and
are all,
and
yeah.
I have not really um I haven't been writing lately. I haven't been drawing lately. I haven't
Mm.
been woodworking or any of the other uh, waves of obsession that go through me at any given time.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'm very similar in that
and
aspect.
yeah, yeah. So this is where I'm at now. And so I had never edited videos before in my life. So,
Hmm.
I'm finding this interesting, and it's an interesting medium. So
Hmm.
yeah, And see, that's how I originally kind of came here to you. It's like I liked what you were doing, and I like this concept of just like it's interesting to see what you think is interesting about that whole video. And
Mhm,
to me, that's an interesting concept.
mhm.
And I'm sure people felt the same way of
Well,
like the
I'm
video that
glad,
I
man.
made.
You know, it's heartwarming to
Yeah,
hear that, like, you enjoyed it and stuff, that you enjoy it.
yeah.
And
But then again, like I also said, I really enjoy listening to you talk.
yeah, I appreciate
I
that as well.
I would love to hear the end of this whole. I want to see where this goes
Mhm. Yeah, I
for
think that's
sure.
what I was gonna say is like, in terms of like my larger aims, like I think no, I'm definitely attracted to the idea of like some sort of like it's very scary because all the people get worried about, oh, you want to be in a cult. It's like, no, I don't want to be in a cult. I want to be in an invited community that's probably has a church, it's like stuff like this. So um yeah, probably it's hard to say. And
Hey,
yeah,
hey, if you ever want to riff anything off on me,
you know,
I'd be glad to
but
give you
also just
feedback.
like in terms of um I don't know, I do feel like I have more to say about perhaps I'll be like debating people about Abraxas and stuff. I say that very jokingly. It's like I don't know, there's probably something where there's more to be done, or I feel I feel very called in that respect as well. It's not just that I feel called towards my artistic pursuits or like my own personal musings, of which there is one primary idea, or the relationships, like all these things call me, but I also feel called to like evangelize in some sense. I don't know. I would love to have a conversation with, to record a conversation with Galahad one day. Perhaps I think that'd be really cool. Um,
I mean, he did that video with
mhm.
the
Yeah, yeah,
what's his name, Tommy.
yeah. It's also a whole nother conversation to get into
Mhm.
right now. But I would like to stress that, like, when I talk about like evangelizing or anything, it's like I do think that, like, I think that like the distinguishing factor between him and a lot of um, quote unquote new age thinkers is, it's like he professes and whatever confesses, for whatever word you want to use, it's like he submits his authority to Christ, you know and like, Abraxas is um yeah, that's probably where I should stop. It's like yeah. And
Yeah,
but this is obviously like a Christian thing that's going on, with when it comes to God.
it's
So
it's
in my
it's
opinion, what do we mean by
Christian.
Christian, blah blah blah, blah. Like
Well, yeah, I mean, if I think about the whatever the corner, I feel that it's at least Christian adjacent,
hmm, yeah, yeah,
right?
for sure. It's primarily Christian.
It it's got a lot of Christians, but it's got
Yeah.
non-Christians too, and they
Mhm.
play just as much of a role in any
Yeah.
of it.
I don't know. I don't want to speak
You
out
got
of
to
my
have that.
bounds here. I
Oh
don't.
yeah,
But that's another.
you put yourself in a
That's
box.
yeah. That's what.
Just
That's
kidding.
what. Yeah. That's one thing I feel called as well. I think that there's I do think like uh yes, I feel like I want to, like I believe the angel that he spoke with um told him that uh it would become popular, or like the word would, it would, the ideas would, I don't want to use the wrong terms, man, but it's like, he made reference to the people that resonate with his work, and that's kind of what's been up. It's not that he's like some, it's like people, if you go to his comments, like there's many, many, many people, saying pretty wild things, you know, and I don't know. That's another thing that I feel pulled in that respect. I do think there's like legit, like this is kind of I don't want to desacralize it, and I don't want to speak in a way that doesn't have the true spirit behind what I'm saying. or lacking context or something. But it's like I think that this is a freaking revelation, y'all. Like this man, you know, saw a pattern that has been nobody picked up on or something like that. And I don't know. I think that the cosmogram is a pretty powerful thing. Yeah, I feel like I should stop speaking here. But
You're fine. You're fine. You're very
yeah.
passionate about it.
Yeah, man.
I
It's
would
also
hate to. I don't
yeah.
want to smother that.
Mhm. Yeah. But that's one thing is that, I think it's important. A lot of people miss the fact that like he kind of recognizes Christ, and yeah, I think that's very significant. Everyone's on the freaking hunt for false prophets these days. It's like who's going to be the Antichrist? Keep an eye out, and so it's like I don't know, you know, I don't think he's the Antichrist. I can say that, at least not right now. Yeah. Although that's kind of one thing that I also came to mind thinking about what we might talk about. One thing that I'm not just thinking about what we might talk about, it's come many times and it happened to come up earlier today in my mind, is that like, I think it would be perhaps naive to think that there's not been any like oppositional forces uh moving in these spaces, or something like that, even even just at like the highest up level of like perhaps like Jordan Peterson or something like that. Like people want to influence Jordan Peterson, right? Like there's lots of
Yeah.
people, so and I think I don't know, I wouldn't I don't want to sound too like uh paranoid or whatever, but it's like I don't know. There's a certain sense in which somebody's not like real until I like have met them in person or something like that, and I think we have to
Right.
be, it's like when there's all these anonymous commentaries, and stuff like that, you know, but I think we should, consider these things perhaps to some extent. It's like once if we are truly if there is truly a if there's truly like the Holy Spirit is like sweeping out into the world or something like that, or if we see it catching fire here in this little corner, as we
Hmm.
call it, I think then, you know, there would probably be people who don't want that, you know, and we should perhaps be wary of that, like, I don't know, you know, I don't know, or maybe want to
Mm,
steer it in a particular direction or something like that, and so I think that that's
I
important
could
to think
see
about.
that.
It's interesting. Like, what do you think about when it comes to like the whole defense against potential negative influencers? It's like the idea of the influencing mechanism and stuff like that. It's like, do you you know when do you think it's reasonable to like uh uh suspend your disbelief perhaps, about somebody's um authenticity or something like that? It's like, as I said, it's kind of for me, it's largely when I meet them in person or something and I get to know them and I can look them in the eye and like be in the same space with them and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
you
I
know,
mean,
yeah, like
well,
I
I
don't
guess
think
I always
Paul
think
is. I don't
about
think Paul is pulling our leg. But I don't
do what
know.
now?
I don't think Paul is Paul Vanderklay. I think that he's a legit dude. I don't think he's a CIA agent. Like it's like when do you think it's when do you think it's where do you think how do you draw the lines in this respect?
Well, obviously, well, I think, okay,
There is no agency.
um, I think, at least for me, obviously, it's going to be to some degree of, um, I have an immediate gut intuition about people that
Mhm,
I'm gonna take, and I'm gonna probably take that as far as, um,
mhm,
it's, sometimes I do it a little too quick, but, uh, yeah, I think a lot of it's gonna have to come down to just having some form of communication with that person.
mhm,
Right, because if you can't have some kind of communication with them, and it's probably gonna have to be beyond the written word. It's gonna have to be some kind of
Although I've also had times where it's like I'll see a commenter and then I'll go and I'll see that they have posted a lot of videos and they're in the videos or something and it's like it's probably although again, coming into this, especially if the videos go back years and years and years, like, so
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's something um well, it comes back always to a very familiar thing for me. It's the whole the map is not the territory and the menu is not the food. Um, it's a representation, and on the written word, at
Yeah.
least in its present form, is very much a representation. Not always, and I think maybe a UT comment maybe has a little bit more flavor to it in the sense of people don't always spend as much time, and so you might get a lot more of that sort of immediate um, stream of thought, for
Hmm.
instance, right? You're not getting the polished but you are. You're
Yeah.
also getting a lot of that, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
You can.
look how many comments you'll see that are edited,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Um,
and it's kind of annoying that once something is edited, like somebody could reply, and then they could edit again. It's not going to show
hmm,
that it was further edited. So it
yeah, I don't know.
recontextualizes the reply, right?
Right.
And
Yeah, and so I guess yeah, but as far as authenticity goes, it's basically just sort of, I think the that written word and that text will only get you so far.
mhm. Yeah, I think ultimately it's kind of, but yeah,
Let me let my dog out real quick.
yeah, yeah, go for it. Mm. I think it's ultimately it's kind of good faith in the end. It's like even if you are a CIA agent, it's like if I
I'm a
really
good
love
one.
you, yes, if it's like if I really love you, then it's no big deal, or something like that,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. But I think,
I don't know. I always think of that Peterson thing where it's like I barely know myself. I know how complicated I am, and then here I am talking to you, and I'm like, I know how complicated you are, but I don't at all.
mhm,
And so it's
yeah,
just like the amount of communication and interaction it really takes to even get to that barely knowing somebody is so
yeah,
extreme.
it's true, man.
Um,
Like there was,
so we have to
yeah,
somewhat
like,
employ just like I'm gonna have to take a gut reaction against you and say,
yeah, yeah, and
okay,
it's hard to
you're in
get.
bucket one or two, right?
Yeah, man. I sense that to some degree. Yeah, for sure. Because and I think it's a good point to say that like it's hard when there's no real like or when there's no dense communication, high signal communication or something like that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Um,
that was sort of like that was one of the big things that resonated with me on that video of his. It's just sort of this because it's something I have been thinking a lot about, namely because I've been recording myself while I drive to work. And
mm,
so I've been participating in this auditory thinking, and I've noticed that it just sort of has a completely different quality to it
mm,
than when I write things down.
mm,
There's something very interesting about the difference between my writing voice versus my thinking out loud voice.
mhm,
And not just thinking in my head, the thinking out loud voice is just
yeah.
it's distinct. And so it just struck me. It was just something I had thought a lot about.
Mm,
So mainly because it
yeah.
was just sort of like what I'm kind of working on right now. And so it just was like, oh,
Yeah, I'm curious what is kind of, are you willing to give a little teaser for your, or like,
uh,
spoil your,
well,
what are you working on?
no. So right now, I think I'm dancing around. One of the Vervaeke terms that always really kind of just sparked my interest was this whole psychotechnology concept.
Mm,
So I don't know, it's just something there, and then I just struggling, just kind of looking back at psychotechnology. So what is it, and
yeah, yeah,
how does it touch this realm? And
cool,
so
man.
that's what I'm dancing around with right now.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. I think I'm glad that I look forward to it. The whole psychedelic thing is very salient. I feel like a lot of people are very
Because
touchy. I
it
think it's
certainly could be a
people are,
touchy thing.
yeah,
Why did I want to come in to this corner at this level, right?
mm,
It's because this is where um you know like I said, I've been following these these smaller channels that don't
mhm,
I'll say and that's what I was trying to communicate to a degree. It's not that, it's not that all these other channels aren't authentic or anything, but it's just something, I don't know, there's just something raw and something I can connect with. Like, I'm a fringe Christian. I'm not a,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
the why
I'm
did they
curious
put
about
find
your
the
I'm curious about your what books you've burned in your past, and like yeah, what have you what in the sense of like,
mm,
where you what waters
mm,
you tread through and now you've come, you know, you know, because like I've gone through a lot of those at least it's like I remember those times where I'd take hikes in the woods and there was a while where I mean, I don't want to pick a particular thing here because then it'll imply that that was like a big thing for me. But we were talking about Robert Anton Wilson earlier, and it reminded me of those times many years ago. I'd be walking through the woods, I'd listen to a Robert Anton Wilson lecture or something, you know, and and I'm just thinking like there's so many like all the oh man, I don't want to name drop people, and also I'm not trying to really judge Robert Anton Wilson here, because I also, I think that's where I first heard reality tunnel, and like you were saying, I think that's a very
mhm.
useful term, and um, but there's lots of really,
Well, okay.
the new age scene, as it is commonly referred to, can be a very
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know. You understand what I'm saying? I'm just and also,
I
but I'm
do. I
also
do
curious, like when
understand.
it comes to like astrology and stuff, and like, were you into astrology? Are you into astrology? Because like
Um,
another one of my
I
that's another
can't
one of my
say that
interests.
I can't say that I was into it. Um, you know, do I find it interesting? Yeah, I do.
Mm,
I don't know much about it. I never
gotcha.
really, it wasn't anything that really,
Hmm.
um, captured my attention at any given time.
Did you
But
ever
now,
go to a
now,
meditation retreat? Um, did you ever
no,
do a
no,
palm reader? I think palm readers can probably be legit. I'm not trying to. um,
no. But
Did you
I
participate
think
in a
for
magic?
a
Were you in
what,
a magical cult? Like, were you in a? Were you in a secret order?
maybe in my mind, maybe in
That's
my
funny.
mind at one point in time.
Yeah. Or like, what was there some other like big main thinkers that like people that you listen to a
Well,
lot?
okay. Here was something
You don't have to name
interesting.
drop if you don't want to.
No. I clipped it. It's great. I was listening to the conversation that Grim Grizz had with, I think his name is Sanjay, the other day here, and they brought up the video that I had made, and uh, Grim Grizz had made a mention about something about um,
Psychedelics.
you know, well, no, something about mentioning him, and then that disseminating out the video to the community or whatnot. And he mentioned something about find the others, right?
Mm, yeah, yeah, that was
Put
yeah,
find
that
the
was
others on the
Tim
thumbnail.
Leary, right?
Terrence McKenna.
I think he got it from
It's
Tim Leary.
He very well could have, but
Yeah,
that's not where I got it from.
yeah,
I got it from the several hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and
me too,
hundreds
man.
of hours of listening
Yeah,
to
man.
Terrence McKenna videos in my past.
Yeah, that was
So,
me too. I listen to a lot of Terrence
and
McKenna.
do I do I find myself in alignment with him now? No, not really. However, it's still a part of me,
Hmm.
and it still paints who I am and my
Hmm.
experience, and I can still find useful things about what he does, and particularly the way that he says things. I'm
I think,
very
yeah,
interested in the way that he says
me
things.
too, man. That's yeah, like I'm yeah, I would say pretty much the same thing, and that I don't, I'm not on board with a lot of his views as I was.
Yeah,
Like I
in
remember
fact, I
there when
think,
there was a time where I was like psychedelics are the answer, man. You know, and
oh,
but I don't see that way anymore.
yeah,
And
no, I know.
and like um uh but there's a lot of interesting things still about, every once in a while I'll still post the Terrence McKenna clip, and I think that um something about the way that he speaks, man, it's super
Yeah,
interesting. Like you said, it's like his intonation and his
he
like one thing I've noticed when making clips, man, is like almost any
mhm.
song I can put it on the song and it just like syncs up perfectly. It's like, whoa.
It's like the dark side of the moon sort of thing, right? Like it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
it
For
syncs
real.
up
Yeah,
just
it's like yeah,
perfectly.
there's something about the
But yeah,
resonance
he's
and
got
it,
he's got a very a rhythmic
yes.
hypnotic kind of
Yep.
language pattern,
Yep.
and he does something very unique. He's like
Hmm.
he does a lot of
Mm.
and
Yeah, that's true.
chains in his language, and when you do that, that's a very
Oh, I see. Yeah.
he draws you in, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
I don't it's just it's a good way to speak.
Yeah.
But he talked about it. He's like, I'm an Irish bard, and this kind of
Hmm.
stuff. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I still parts of me can go back
Hmm.
to that time and pick that stuff apart. And
Hmm.
lately, I've been kind of listening to Christopher Pietro,
Mm. Yeah,
John
he has a
Vervaeke's.
similar. I noticed that
He does.
every once in a
It's
while
like
he'll just
butter,
go
man.
into this thing where very similar to Terrence McKenna, where it's like,
Yeah, so that's
yeah.
another little video thing that I'm kind of probably will
I
do is
really
just
almost think that that's like it's really directly connected to what were saying before and what I've been talking about. I'd be like, I think that that's kind of with the respirited, perhaps like I don't know if that's exactly where I would use it, but I think something about like maybe logos embodiment. It's like Terrence McKenna used logos terminology. Interestingly, he
he
was the
did.
first person that
Yeah.
I heard about the logos from, and
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, he talked a lot about Abraxas and other things like that as well. So
hmm.
it might be something you might want to go back and refresh your memory a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
don't remember him
He
talking about
talked about a
Abraxas.
ton of stuff. It's hard to
Yeah,
say
that's
what he
true.
did or didn't talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah. No, yeah, I just mean
It's
when I say I don't remember if I saw
oh,
or if
hey,
I heard him
how
speak
could
about that.
anybody
Yeah,
remember everything that he said?
yeah, true.
Um, one of the things that always the one that always got me was his whole conversation about the creatives and the biggest problem was that the poets failed us.
Hmm,
Like the poets failed us, and
I see.
they didn't write the
Yeah,
that moving, spirited poem
yeah.
that's supposed to carry
He
us
talks a lot
through.
about
And I
direct
just
experience, right? You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and just I don't know, there's something about that little, it's the artist, it's the poet, and I'm just like I always could.
Hmm.
There's something about that I could connect with.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have lots of love for Terrence McKenna, but
yeah.
like you said, I think definitely
But
there's
I gotta
places.
take it with a
Yeah. What about
I take it in a different fashion these
yeah,
days, which
yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah, we're running a little long here, right? But
Yeah,
and
yeah,
not
yeah.
that this is not long, but I just noticed it's getting up there, and in terms of time, and but like did you like trip a lot and stuff like that, or no?
I wouldn't say a lot, but
Mhm.
I definitely know of it, and I have
How vague.
um, days of my youth.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you ever like
I don't know.
dabble occasionally still, perhaps? I don't know if you have kids or how old your kids are, if like, because that's one thing,
Yeah,
sometimes people
I've
have to be
got
cautious with.
yeah, I've got a kid. My oldest daughter's in high school, and so
Mm,
she's in ninth grade and whatnot. And I got another daughter who's in middle school, and
mm,
yeah, I mean, pretty much ever since I've been in my career for 17 years now. So
mm,
um, I really kind of I shifted a lot of my
mhm,
past fun times, and um,
mhm.
but
Well,
yeah, no,
mm.
I definitely have a love-hate relationship with it. Like
Yeah,
I
man.
understand it, but I'm also
Mhm.
I would certainly say it's a last resort, not a first resort. That's
Interesting.
kind of like that's where I would put it. Now, obviously for some people it's you know, I don't know. It will break you out of your materialistic
I
reality.
see. Interesting. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't tripped in a while either. Um, Not like quite so long as you mentioned, but yeah. So I heard that. So yeah, I don't know. Perhaps we should perhaps we should like wrap it there. I mean,
That's fine. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, there's many other. I'm curious about like other stuff
Oh,
as well, but you know, we could probably go on further for
yeah.
talking
Well, that's how
for
I think
so
a great many of these kind of conversations go.
yeah.
Right. There's I guess there was a starting point and maybe a topic here or there, and
Mhm.
the way the wind
Yeah.
blows, it's just sort of how it goes.